Welcome, everyone. I think we should probably get started. We're about a minute over. I can quickly read our land acknowledgement. Founded in 1889, the University of New Mexico sits on the traditional homelands of the Pueblo of Sandia. The original peoples of New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to Indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history. With that opening, we'll go straight into updates from our steering committees. I think finance requested to be last, so we'll move them after admissions and pipeline. So we'll start with data if they're here. Data might not be here, so we'll move on to finance.
Oh, I think Dr. Chan, was finance going to go last?
Oh, that's right. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, okay, no, that's okay. That's one of those days, I think.
And education. We'll start with education. I see Dr. McGrew is here. I'm not sure if Rory's here.
Am I unmuted? Yeah, okay. I'm always confused. I don't see Rory yet either. I wanted her to be here. I mean, I could start a little bit, but Rory really follows across. So one of the things in a recent meeting that we had was just a suggestion for me, particularly, that perhaps its structure may need to be revised a little bit, in the sense that each school and college is very different in how they run their curriculum and how any particular area might affect different things. You know, how the atrocities against women in OB-GYN was years ago may not be as applicable for pharmacy. There may be other things, but the concepts and principles are the same. And so that's what we need across. And so I think the way that this is set up, although I love pharmacy and nursing and population health, Don Godwin, is that it might be better to restructure this in a way that there is a rep from each college to do it, as well as an overriding interprofessional education person who really helps with that. And, you know, I talked to Dr. Levi about that, because I think that's sort of part of academic affairs. So for the School of Medicine, and then I can turn it over to Dr. Godwin, we're progressing. We are going to, of course, we're working with everybody in all the other subgroups, but specifically for education, we are going to fund a content expert in anti-racism in the School of Medicine who could work with the medical students, biomedical sciences graduate programs, and health professions. I know that Dr. Rohan Minharris and Dr. Goodkind they're great, and they're doing a great job, but this additional 0.25% will give more content expertise. And importantly, the nice thing about having the diversity experts in each department is that we can work with, and it's like extensions, right? So that they can then work with both diversity, anti-racism, education, and other things to make sure those content, concepts, and principles are included. So for instance, I'm just going to make some stuff up. Marlene Vallejos may be on the call. She is in the Department of Family Medicine, and so she could work with the clerkship director, the residency director, and others that do education in those departments to do that. So Rory and I, and let me see if, did Rory get here? No, and I'm just back from vacation today, sorry. So I haven't talked to her, but we also will be doing a follow-up soon just to see where people have progressed with their work in each area. But I just would ask the group to seriously consider a slightly different structure for the educational part. And Dawn, I don't know if you want to throw anything else in regarding that.
No, not really. I mean, you know, I know that, you know, that Krista Salazar, who's on the call, and Jim Fang, who I don't think is, you know, have been our representatives, and you know, and are working, you know, to find the appropriate places within our curriculum, you know, across our curriculum to place anti-racism, diversity content. I am looking forward to seeing what the group comes up, what the education group comes up, for more like I said, more of a general curriculum, but then being able to move into the specifics of pharmacy.
Is that enough, Dr. Chan, at this moment? That's it without Rory to give. I don't know if anybody from nursing or public health might want to comment. I know I do see Dr. Armitage here. Sorry, it's two screens on mine. So if I'm leaving people out, I deeply apologize.
I can, so Heidi Rogers is listening, but she can't speak.
Okay.
So I can speak to College of Nursing and also IPE. Much better about College of Nursing. We are initiating electives in the summer and fall about race in and health equity. Hopefully they will go well and they can become real courses and not just electives. So our diversity group within the College of Nursing is working on that, and we're very excited about it. I'll stop speaking because I'll let Dr. Armitage talk about College of Population Health, and then maybe Heidi will be where she can speak about IPE because she knows more about it than I do now.
Yeah. Hi everyone. It's Heidi. Sorry, I'm just driving home from getting my car fixed. I can give a report from IPE if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So just IPE has been working with the Education Curriculum Subcommittee. The students and residents in that group have pulled together some marching orders for IPE and a lot of really fantastic suggestions about what a IPE elective on this material could look like. We are partnering on the development of that, and Dr. Jamal Martin and also Colleen Maluski from the library are both interested in joining that group. Of course, anyone's welcome. So that's, with sort of a TBD. We're in the middle of that. We've been meeting weekly.
Great. That all sounds so exciting. And I think the restructuring, Dr. McGrew, might be a common theme for some of the other subcommittees. So we'll continue to hear from them, and maybe we'll have time at the end to discuss that a little bit further. But thank you for that. Let's see, who is next? Hiring.
Well, I know that I'm really brain dead this morning.
Dr. Smart couldn't join us.
That's right. Dr. Smart said she couldn't join us, but I don't know if there's anybody else here from that group.
I'm here from that group, Gail. I could tell you that we have done a complete audit of the documents that were identified having to do with hiring and recruiting, and Dr. Smart is reviewing it, and I believe that she was going to meet with you, Dr. Romero-Legat, to discuss before we published it. And that's as far as I know. Sorry, I don't know anything else.
Anyone else from hiring? Okay, I believe admissions and pipeline is next.
Yeah, I can go briefly, but then I'm going to turn it over. So we're one of the groups that is thinking about restructuring as well. and mostly because the student group has really done the predominant amount of the work and has really pushed the process forward, and that may be the group that needs to be everything be collapsed into that group. So I know Leroy and Tristan are on the call. If they would like to update the group, because it is really their efforts that have pushed it forward.
So I think we're just meeting weekly to analyze the data that we've collected for the admissions. I think at this point we're halfway through. It's pretty tedious. Each column takes about half an hour to 20 minutes, and we have like 20 columns. So getting through there. We also had a meeting with Dr. Zaidonis and Dr. Romeo-Leggett on the 12th of April to showcase the work we've done thus far and looking forward to collaborating moving forward. Leroy, please chime in if I left anything out.
And just to comment on the end of that, I think we're getting to a point where we have collected a lot of data and are in the process of analyzing it. And I think we're maybe a little stuck on how to move forward with it and how much the coalition wants to continue to do work within that group. So I think we just need a little bit more guidance on how to move forward in the future.
And I was also going to mention, sorry, I just remembered, that was for our admissions, and we have our pipeline section, but we kind of decided at our meeting on the 30th of April as a group that we might not collect information on pipeline since Teresa Madrid's office already does. We don't want to duplicate efforts. So we may instead offer recommendations as opposed to collecting data. So I just remembered that and thought I'd mention it.
Great, thank you. We'll circle back to data. Is anybody here from data?
I believe Dr. Gonzalez is here from data now.
There's a couple of us here from data. Thank you. So there is, I know Norman, and Norman, I'm going to say your name wrong, Koyate, and Lori Sloan are also here. We're probably one of the ones that restructured early on. Our group was quite diverse. We have 3 different areas, and we recognized early on that we had people with the overlapping but still somewhat distinct interests in either hospital data practices, HSC student data practices, and HSC research data practices, and noticed that we are not collecting data or overseeing any data analysis or collection. We do want to make sure that it is available, what is available, what's being done in these 3 different areas. So Nicole Rogers, an education specialist in the Department of Nursing Excellence at UNM Hospital, is the lead on our hospital data collection practices. And she is not here, but I wanted to let you know that the hospital is moving forward, making sure that all areas of the of practice are using the About Me form. And those of you who don't know about this, it is a data collection form that the hospital has created to actually capture data about the individual patient and what their needs are. And I will leave it at that for right now, except to say that there is a quality analysis going on for the process and the completion of documentation that the hospital is doing. The other area is student data, and student is collected right now at the banner level. Let's people self-report this, but there is a need, well defined, about actually collecting data on students that we're going to be moving forward with initially with the College of Nursing. I have a meeting with Dr. Taylor and Dr. Levisfeld coming up. And that's maybe to use something similar to that About Me form and how that would look and how they would collect the data, and also find out a little bit more about the student needs. And then we'd like to move that on to the other colleges as well. And the last part is our data practices in research area. And as you can imagine, this is quite a diverse, has a lot of different facets to this particular type of data practices everywhere, everything from the writing of grants and how data from communities might be incorporated into that without their knowledge or with their knowledge and their and contributions back to their communities. There's also the issues of human subjects within IRB. We've discussed both primary data collection and also secondary data analysis. And when secondary data analysis is done, what the requirements are to make sure that it is presented with the right institutional review board for human subjects protection involved, and particularly with our tribal communities to make sure that they are aware of what's going on as well. And a last part of that is about the data sharing practices that the National Institutes of Health has had an effect for some time in terms of reporting data back to the larger scientific body. That's been for larger grants, and it's becoming a requirement for smaller grants. And we have had some discussions about the applicability of data repositories going to another location that is not in that's not under the control of individual communities, particularly tribal communities. So maybe this is a group that can be split apart into these different areas. But as I said, we have been working in these three domains pretty much since the beginning of hospital, student, and research data practices. Norman or Lori, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it all well. Gonzalez.
Yeah, I agree. This is Lori. One of the other things that I wanted to mention is the library is looking into a product that we have hosted, the Native Health Database. Now, all of that information that we put on there is public, and the data for what Melissa was talking about is, confidential, is protected health information, so it won't work. But we definitely need to talk about, having a nice, secure location with all the proper consents in place for research data. And we're struggling with that at Health Sciences Center at this time.
Lori, can you just update us? Is that a product only of the library, and what other entities are involved with that initiative?
Okay, let me put a link in the chat. So what we have there is a blog posting that takes you to the blog. So the library has a collection of material that was presented and has for the Native Health Database. And so this product called Mukurtu, the R is silent, allows you to set up a community where you can share information and get input. So tribes that want to contribute information about what's happening in their areas can contribute and have discussion and not make it public, as well as having a space for public consumption. It's new for us. We're working on that. So that's about what I have right now.
Thanks, Lori. That about wraps up the data subcommittee.
Lori, I do have a follow-up question for you. This, the Mukurtu, is it only for research that is solely on or about Indigenous peoples, or if it includes Indigenous patients? Like, how can you just enlighten me how you would use this?
Well, it's set up so communities can contribute what they feel is worth contributing, and it's used to voice their perspective on the material, because, you know, as we all know with research, it's been done about people, not with people, not with community input. And so this platform is around helping to get community input and discussions of, you know, what goes there into this product. But right now, it's not for any patient information at all. It just says contributing historical material at this point.
But it sounds like maybe it has the potential to become something like that.
Yes, I mean, it could, we could have different communities. I mean, we could have more, you know, more than just indigenous tribes, you know, who want to share information and have it put out in their own perspective. So yes, there's a lot of potential with this product. We just started using it. We set up a server to host this open source platform, and we're trying it out with the Native Health Database. So we're trying to see how well this is going to work. We have the Native American Advisory Council who's evaluating, you know, what else could go into this. So yeah, it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think the only reason I'm asking so many questions about this is when we originally had our first die-in almost a year ago, one of our main asks was that Indigenous peoples be included when we are collecting data about this patient population and have a say on how that gets disseminated, where that gets published, because we know from just historical anecdotes that we routinely perform research on minoritized patients without actually giving them credit, whatever that means. And so this sounds like a fabulous endeavor. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
And I had provided a link to our group on a video that was describing the process. So I'll look for that and make sure I get it out to this group so it can be more broadly shared, so you can get a better perspective on what we're doing and how we can expand on this.
Absolutely. Thank you. We would really appreciate that. And was finance not going to present, or what was, or they were going to go very last?
They were going to go last.
I think last, because to give Rory a chance, or well, I guess any of the members to come on, but Rodney, I know, was in a meeting till 12:30. And I don't know if Rory's here or anyone else from finance.
Yeah, it was Rodney was going to be late because he had a conflict. So if he's able to join us.
I think he just popped up.
Oh, good.
Rodney, perfect timing. We had just gotten to finance subcommittee updates. Thank you.
Hi, well, that was good timing. I apologize for being late, everyone. Is Dr. Patel on, or is he not on? Okay, it sounds like he's not on. So I believe the finance report is largely completed, and that's been circulated to the group, and that will be sent out for folks, and it kind of frames the different areas that we need to continue our work in. So I think that section will kind of frame the work going forward, is based on those sections, what would be the next steps related to moving those pieces forward, or determining if there are barriers to that, what is that, and how do we address that. So I'd be happy to answer questions about any of that. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. And that was just a good reminder of our quarterly reports, which I think have turned into twice a year reports. I don't think we're doing them exactly quarterly, which I think is okay because some of our processes and data collection do take a longer turnaround than, every 3 or 4 months. And I think maybe twice a year is more realistic for us to be able to attain our goals and objectives and be able to produce something meaningful. Dr. Romero-Leggett, can you remind me, who did we send that to? Who's collecting those and where are they going?
I think we've been getting them, and you, Amy, I think, have been receiving them here and there. But we should circle back and check, and I'll double check with Meg, because Meg might have been receiving them as well. And I think we should clarify, Dr. Chan, and Dr. Levi, if we were also, I know that a couple of different formats had gone through and some iterations, and the last one that I recall seeing had been one with kind of like a stoplight and kind of color coded. And then I think people had agreed that we would be looking at also prioritizing, right? And that color code would help prioritize what those goals were. So maybe we'll circle back after this too and just make sure and send that out to everybody, make sure everyone's using what I had recalled was the last one. Dr. Levi, Dr. Chan, do you remember anything else?
I think actually Rodney asked the question about the format, and we had agreed that at some point in time we had agreed that we would have the dashboard, but then followed by a narrative, and we had some examples. And I don't know if Meg is still here and if she wants to address that at all, but we can certainly send that out again, that format, to the subcommittee chairs so that so that they know what the expectation is.
Okay, I think we had decided on doing a stoplight report. That's what our subcommittee's working on. And I believe I saw the education one briefly. So I think that's what we decided, but again, I might be confused. Okay, let me see the agenda. So we're a couple minutes early, which is great. I feel like we always run out of time at the end for open forum. But the next one, I'm not sure if maybe I'm putting somebody on the spot here, but the coalition wanted to just have more information about the executive diversity officer position and what are the updates on that, if there are any.
And I'm guessing you mean in the School of Medicine. Okay, because that's the only one I can speak to. So we are in the process, and again, I'm just back today from leave, so I'm not sure exactly where it is. But while I was gone, we've been sending it out to various groups to get input, and Dr. Sanchez has been in charge of that. And so I'm not sure where it's been with everywhere yet, but we were documenting at the bottom where it had been so that we would know and getting that together. My hope, I mean, I want to get voices in it, so that takes a little bit of time, but my hope is that we could get it posted next week toward the end of the week. That would be ideal. The way it will happen after that is that we will set up a search committee, but part of the problem with setting up a search committee is that you don't know who's going to apply for the job. And so there's some people you might want on the search committee, but if they're applying for the job, they obviously can't be on the search committee. But for the search committee, and I'll talk about this whole process so you know, it's usually about 8 to 10 people. It is not the job of the search committee to choose the person, but rather to, amongst the applicants, really to vet them and see how closely it corresponds to the job description and to narrow it down to 3 people. I prefer about 3. I mean, it could be 2, it could be 4, but 3 is a good number, who all would be good no matter who they were, that it could be any one of them and that they would do a good job. We'll then have them interview broadly. So we can set up an interview session with this group. We'll set one up with the chairs. We can set one up with the DEI reps. We'll set one up, of course, with Dr. Zadonis, myself. We'll set up broad broad interviews to get feedback from folks. The job description, if you've seen it, and if anybody needs to see it, I'm welcome to send it. We can centralize that in Dr. Romero Leggett's office. It talks that you have to think about this sort of in two ways, right? Which is that one is you want somebody with expertise in this area, right? DEI, anti-racism, all the sort of principles that matter to all of us. The other part of the job, of course, is that it's an administrative leadership job. So not only that, but unfortunately going to meetings, which is the bane of everybody's existence. Dr. Zadonis will laugh at me because I hate meetings, most meetings. I like this meeting, actually, I want to say. But, you know, they'll have to look at things like, how do you do a budget in a very resource-constrained environment? How do you work with the Office of Faculty Affairs on hiring? And that'll be Dr. Smart. Faculty development. I mean, it is you know, when you think about things like research or education, they're sort of very deep. This will be broad. This will be working with people across the whole campus, the hospital, and others. So how the person thinks about that is going to be very important. And, you know, the part of all of our jobs that are hard is the management part, you know, hiring, firing, doing annual reviews and that sort of thing. So it's got to be somebody who has strengths in both areas, both the conceptual ideas and the education, as well as somebody who has good leadership management skills. As I think about the search committee, I want to think about it broadly. And of course, I'd appreciate your input. If you get really beyond 8, but I'd certainly be willing to go up to 10, it becomes unruly. It's hard to sort of get everything done in a way, but we'll have a couple of chairs on the committee. We will have one of the departmental DEI reps. We'll have somebody from the Office of Diversity. And then let me finish this and I'll tell you how I'm thinking about this. I want to have a couple of learners on it. I want to have a staff member on it, and I'd like to have a community member on it. That gets me up to 8. That leaves 2 positions. One of the things that's important is to balance it out. So say, for instance, we have 3 big educational areas in the School of Medicine. We have the MD, BSGP, and the health professions. So I'd want to make sure those were well represented. And I'll give you an example of how that could be. And I'm going to use, just looking at the screen, I'll use Dr. Gonzalez-Foss. If she were on the committee, she would represent more than just education. You know, she's the director of the BSGP program, but she could also represent research. And so I want to make sure as we go through that we have some broadness across, you know, what is represented in each area. So I want to make sure education, research, clinical, community, and all that is represented across the board. So that's how we'll choose the search committee. I'd be happy to take any nominations or recommend any names. But again, the search committee will be 8 to 10 people. But once we set up the interviews for the about 3, then interviews can happen broadly. What questions do you have or ideas do you have for me? Speak up. I'm happy to hear them.
I don't think the students have received this document. Is it planned to go out to the students?
You know, I don't know if it's going out to all students. We certainly could do that, but I know it's gone out to a lot of the different groups that students are on. Like, I think it's gone out, and I don't know if Dr. Sanchez is on. Again, I'm just back from vacation, so I'll do that. But, you know, we don't send out all job descriptions generally around because it would take us years to get the feedback and edit it. But I'm happy to, like, for instance, we'll send this to Dr. Romero's office, Romero Leggett's office, and she can send it to anybody on this call that has students. You can show it to people, but I want to get your feedback as quickly as we can, just so that we can get it out. I'd love to have this person identified by the end of June. I mean, a start date of July, but you know, that's negotiable. It could be a little before, a little after. I'd rather have the voices than you know, to try to rush it through. You know, not everybody will be happy with everything, of course. And I will tell you that the job description we've done is aspirational and really will have to be fully implemented over the next 2 to 3 years. I think for the first year, we're very lucky. This person will be a 0.5. We're going to have a program manager. They'll have an administrative assistant. And then we'll build each year. You know, we start out like with the learning environment office or wellness with small, and we grow this year. We're a little bit more resource constrained this year just because of the COVID crisis and the way it affected funding that comes into the School of Medicine. But I wanted to write the job description, and I want to thank Dr. Sanchez as really an aspirational. What would we really like to do, and how will we leverage the nice thing? Well, the important thing is that we leverage resources that are available, right? One of the most wasteful things we can do is duplicate resources. So we want to be sure that we can leverage resources available and not duplicate any of that. And yet, you know, we're a big group here. You know, we're 4,500 people in the School of Medicine, if you include learners and staff and faculty. So I think it's really important to have an office like this there, because it is a lot. We're a lot of people. And so I think that's really important. But I would welcome any suggestions from you guys about who might be good good search committee members. Again, remember that people will get to interview broadly, and not everybody can be on the search committee. So it's really important to be thoughtful about the people that you recommend. You'll also have to have several meetings, and so just a commitment to that. But we usually try to have them late in the afternoon. That's what Dr. Wilson's done before, so that folks would be able to do that. And for the learners or students that are going to be on the committee, I'd be happy to talk to your either your course directors or clerkship directors or BSGP directors or whoever to get, to be able to have you come to those committee meetings. That answer your question? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
And Martha, I'm looking for the document now to see if I can drop it into, this is Val, I'm looking for the document to see if I can drop it into the chat now for everyone, but if not, I'll
yeah, I don't know how. Sorry, I haven't been through all my email for last week, which you can imagine is a few emails. So I don't know if I have the most recent draft, but if you've got the most recent draft, Dr. Romero-Leggett, I'd be happy to have you drop it in.
I'm searching right now.
Because it's going to take me 2,000 or 3,000 emails to get through some of those. And listen, I'm going to do a plug here right now for everybody. We're trying to do 10% less emails. This has nothing to do with white coats. But folks, when we're scheduling meetings, you don't have to reply to all. That's going to be my tip of the day. That when you reply about scheduling meetings, just reply to the person who sends it. Okay, that's done. I'm seeing are there any questions in here from anybody about that? I think we're getting that. And yeah, we're gonna, just look at folks. Somebody asked a question. This is a School of Medicine position. This is not a cross-campus thing. This person will absolutely have to work cross campus, for instance, in interprofessional work and that sort of thing. So the other thing is that we have to have somebody who really believes in interprofessional education and collaborativeness broadly. If you have any questions too, you can also email me or call or whatever as we go forward. And again, when you look at it, you're going to go, oh my God, this is a lot of work to do. But I'm not expecting anybody to do this in 3 months. It really is to look toward the future and what we want to build toward as moving forward. And also what I really hope is that that you will encourage people to apply for this position, people that that you think would be good, that might be hesitant otherwise to apply. It'll be a person who's probably somewhere mid-associate professor to full professor. One of the things about taking these big jobs too early in your career is that they sort of limit the work you need to do to get promoted early, and it takes a lot of time. And so while this would be counted in promotion, of course, as service to the institution, it's also, as well as diversity, it's also important that like new physicians and new researchers, really new educators get their chops down so that they're experienced in those things as well, because that can be harmful to people if they take on roles like this too early in their careers.
Dr. Muguru, this is Leroy. That sounds very exciting. And I'd like to commend you on the transparency of how you're going about looking for this person and involving learners and staff members, because this group, this coalition, stresses time and time again that the way that you find a really choice person for this, for any position, is through looking at different angles and looking at the different people. And maybe what you think is going to be a great person for this role, there might be somebody that you don't even know about that a staff member would like to bring up and suggest. And I think that's really great because it also keeps it within the community. I think one thing that the coalition really notices is when we hire people from New Mexico, we really get to see people using that voice of New Mexico and meeting the needs of New Mexicans. When you hire somebody from out of state that doesn't necessarily know the community, there's a lot of, I would say, backpedaling that has to happen. They got to learn about the community, but I think it's great. Broadly, two questions that I have. Dr. Levi and Dr. Rogers were talking about the College of Nursing courses that they were going to be shipping out possibly this summer. Would those classes be available cross-listed for the other schools to maybe participate with and using those as electives?
Leroy, may I just, before you ask that question, can I finish this up real quick if it doesn't have anything to do with that? I apologize.
No, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. First of all, thank you for your comments, because my deep desire is to be open in this process. And I wish I could have everybody interview and do everything, but it'd take us 5 years to get anybody hired. So I want to be as completely open as possible. The other thing that I'm really interested in is your suggestions for a community member. And so if you've got folks who are community members who you think would be great, that would be good as well. And then I think, but Leroy, thank you again for acknowledging that we've gone a little slow, but we also want to make sure that we get the right stuff in the thing and the right voices to be heard. And yeah, staff and learners, that's critical. So thank you. Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry I interrupted you too, by the way.
No, that's quite all right. I feel like these Zoom meetings are formal, but incredibly informal since I'm in my living room. The question that I had was whether or not these College of Nursing courses were going to be cross-listed so they could be available to other programs and other schools to take as electives. Of course, I don't know anything else other than nursing when it comes to what electives could be available, but I think it would be interesting if I was a School of Medicine student to take a College of Nursing elective that would be able to work for my school, maybe get a different perspective or something like that and work with other learners. And then let's go with that question because I'm sorry, I just got off a night shift. I did 45 hours in 3 days. So I'm here in my pajamas trying to go to sleep as soon as this meeting's over. So that was the question that I had about the College of Nursing. So Dr. Rogers, I see your heart. Does that mean that that's possible to make it cross-listed?
That's the vision, not for the, we're doing a pilot this summer. It's going to be small with just the College of Nursing, but the IPE program is taking a look at our Just Medicine curriculum, what we're piloting in the con, what the brilliant work that's being led by the students from the OT program, some medical students in the education subcommittee. So the vision and my hope is that we'll have a elective that, and we'll bring it back to this group that might be able to fit into and be flexible enough for multiple programs to be able to have the students participate. As you all know, I teach a lot of interprofessional electives and help build them. And so it's definitely the vision.
One of our challenges, Leroy, is that all of our programs have different schedules, as Dr. Ziodonis just identified in the chat. And so, as Dr. Rogers just said, these are pilots. Partially, we want to pilot the content and the delivery. We're going to do them as hybrid courses. But also, we need to be working on getting us on similar calendars. The idea of electives also is different in different programs, what that means in terms of credit hour content and the level at which the content needs to be provided. So it's a wonderful thing for us to be aspiring to. And as Dr. Rogers said, in the best possible world, this is where these electives will head. But we're just putting our toes in the water, and we'll let you know if it's how quickly the sharks accumulate.
No, we
Excellent.
need.
And I, Dr.
Sorry.
Ziodonis, sorry to interrupt. My brain worked for the last question that I had. And it actually is perfect because it's directed towards you. Do you have a copy of all of the subcommittees' reports that we put together? And if not, would you like us to, each subcommittee, to send you directly our report cards that we put together over the past year?
No and yes. So I don't have them, and I'd love to get them. So please send them. Really important. I look forward to reading them. It was great to meet with the admissions and pipeline group. So seeing everybody's would be great, and in the summary. So thank you. My other comment to your other good question was, you as students might help us, those of you who are students or student-minded, how do we in the short run address this scheduling issue, which in the long run, hopefully we can get on the same schedule. But for example, there might be a way to do something asynchronous. So if your school starts or college starts a week later, maybe there's a way to have students see, particularly since we're in a Zoom world, something that's asynchronous. But we're going to need creativity until we fix the system. But I'd hate scheduling to be the reason we can't do something great, like the great idea of making this available to others. I had to do this in other places, and it is very frustrating that scheduling is one of the barriers. And I can just see Tristan's wheels turning, so I know she's got a great idea. She's just ready to tell it to us.
I know I was part of an interdisciplinary QI project that had nursing students, physician assistant students, and School of Medicine students. And we actually had a very weird schedule where sometimes we would meet once a week, sometimes every other week, sometimes once a month for an entire semester to be able to accommodate. It was an elective, and it was in the afternoon, which is really rough for some people. 5 to 7 is a really hard time, especially for students that are on clinicals, faculty who are also maybe having clinical rotations. But that seemed to work. I think the only reason it worked, though, was in person, and there was food. There was dinner provided at every session. So it was nice. It was nice. But we did have just a very strange schedule where it was once a week, once a month, a couple times in a row. And it just somehow they did Tetris it, as Roger said, just try to fit it into people's schedules.
I would agree, Dr. Chan, with what you're saying too. In the past, when we were doing around Spanish language, and then the medical Spanish, that was the exact same thing that ended up happening after months and months of meetings and trying to align schedules. And I don't think we were doing as much asynchronous then, but it ended up being, like you said, evening elective type of thing, just to try to help meet people's schedules. And yes, food always helps. We agree with that.
Okay, I think we have about 5 minutes left in our open forum, and Tristan said she would like to get an update on the IEC.
Sure, thanks for asking, Kristen. I'll go ahead, Amy. Oh, we have one more thing.
Yeah, before we do that, I just wanted to alert everybody to a great grant that has been given to a group out of the College of Population Health being led by Dr. Kakari Stone, related to disparities in vaccine distribution. You can get, oh, there it is. Thank you, Val, for doing that. Because I think as it was presented to the HSC committee this morning, of the regents this morning, it's really clear that a lot of their objectives are meeting some of the things that have come up in this group in the White Coats Coalition. So I would encourage everybody to learn more about it. It's called, CEAL, C-E-A-L. Don't ask me what it stands for, because now it's noontime, and even though I ate, my brain is pretty scrambled. So just wanted to put that on everybody's radar screen to learn more about some of the exciting stuff that's already going on at the HSC that corresponds really well to things being brought up by the coalition. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Romero-Leggett. Thanks for letting me speak.
No, thank you, Dr. Levi, because I know that was something we knew would be, just in case people had missed the communication yesterday, I think just critically important for our state. So appreciate that information, and we're so excited in this next year to see what comes forth from that. That will be very important to us. So with IEC, the latest there are a couple things. So one is we have had recently, I believe it was last week, but time is very strange these days, but we had a planning meeting with our DEI executive officers, our at-large members, our associate vice chancellors, so that we could get through and discuss and reach consensus on some items that we're talking about and that we need to really get set in terms of our operational pieces. We will have one more planning meeting as well, because we didn't get through all of the items that we had at that time, but things like talking about, how we'll be choosing the co-chairs for the committees, and coming up in our next planning committee, we'll be discussing some of the items about, how people are invited to participate, because we want wide participation from people on all of the committees and the subcommittees. We were celebrating and also wanted to share that we're very excited that several of the members from White Coats Group are part of the IEC at this point in time, and we know that we'll have many others as people are part of the committees and subcommittees, but we know that Crystal Salazar, Fabian Chavez, Laura Nerby, several of the ABCs are all part of White Coats as well as the IEC. We wanted to also make mention and just let people know that the DEI executive officers, now that there is a person identified in each of the colleges and the other entities that make up the Health Sciences Center, would be like an excellent opportunity if you're interested in finding out more, being part of the process for DEI in any of those entities, to reach out to those people. So maybe you're interested in finding out a little bit more about SRMC and might want to be involved in what's happening there, or with the library, as we were just hearing some of the incredible work they're doing, and then Ingrid Hendricks, you could reach out to her as the DEI executive officer. So really, I think some great opportunities as well to reach out to these new leaders in these entities across the HSC, and be part of the process that they're going to be initiating within each of their places, colleges or cancer center or HISLIC, et cetera. So those are, I think, a couple little updates. Dr. Levi, Dr. Zidonis, anything, Dr. Sanchez, anything else you'd like to include here?
Yeah, I had two things quick. Martha doesn't get any break. Welcome back. I know that JP's been a placeholder on the council for the School of Medicine as an interim. And so you're going to have to, amongst all your other tasks, pick a new person. And that, I think, would be a good opportunity for people on this call to be considered for that role. And so I would be encouraging the group to really pay attention to that position and lobby or whatever you do with Dean McGrew. The second item, I just really wanted to highlight Val's great idea to reach out to any of those unit directors and see if you could join their group. Like, I know a few of them well, like Dr. Singh at SRMC. He's really terrific, and I know he's going to probably have a really great team. And you could influence a $90 million company that is in a county with 5 pueblos, and they have a lot of engagement in different ways. And that's only one of the units, and that's not a big one. So I would really, I think there's an opportunity for all of you to have an influence. I know you're all busy and you're doing a lot of work, but I would think of that as a high impact area. Great idea, Dr. Romero-Leggett.
Thank you. I know we're a little over time, but any questions prior to us? And then we can continue. Of course, we'll be continuing the conversation and providing some more updates. Meg, were you wanting to say something?
No, I think we're good.
Right.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.